Story 1. Started my own bakery from my tiny apartment kitchen with just $500. Now I have 3 locations and employ 15 people. I still can't believe that my late-night stress baking turned into this. Story 2. Bought a house with my wife at 25 years old in Australia despite the high prices. We have a golden retriever who is 9 months old. Life is good. Story 3. Cooking is not my strong suit by any stretch of the imagination. I am not that good at it. Despite this, my friend's child, a notoriously picky eater, wanted to taste my cooking instead of the pizza I had reserved for her. She tasted my dish and immediately wanted more, claiming it was better than pizza. As far as I am concerned, I am a Michelin star chef now. Story 4. I have been published for a series of novels that I wrote, which I consider an awesome achievement. It was a childhood dream of mine. As a bonus, the series had some success in my country when it was released. Story 5. Being told by my Chinese friends in high school that I used my chopsticks like a natural, life peaked then. Story 6. Commissioned in the military. I come from a poor single-parent home, so being the first college graduate and military officer was very important to me. Story 7. A 6 out of 6-star review of a restaurant where I was the head chef. I have never been much of a competitive person, but I have always cared deeply about the craft and put a lot of hard work into it. This was a slightly understaffed kitchen, with a busy lunch service and functions on the weekends. Receiving a 6 out of 6-star review for the more elegant evening menu felt like a nice pat on the shoulder. Story 8. I wrote a training manual for a job that was used for about 20 years, based on my notes and things I thought were important. Recently, I created another one for a different job, and I love how, when people have questions, I can show them where the answers are. It was never required. I just did it. Story 9. Just being an adult who has my life together and is capable of living a fairly hassle-free life. The number of people I know who are either in huge amounts of debt or just cannot organize anything to save their lives is frankly ridiculous. Story 10. I started back in school at 36 to become a nurse. Last semester, I got a 99 in anatomy and physiology too. I scored 100 on every single test. I had lost so much confidence in myself over the years, and I never thought I would actually make it through this process. I am not just doing it, I am excelling at it. I love everything I am learning. Story 11. I am still here to complain about life. Yes, this might sound a little dark, but let us be honest. I definitely did not expect to make it this far, and I am very glad I did. Story 12. I am overcoming my struggles, both new and old, without losing love and affection for other people. I still shine the brightest even though I do not know how to exist outside my dark room. Story 13. I have a genetic condition that affects only 34 people in the world. I was not supposed to be able to walk or talk according to doctors. I have won multiple bodybuilding competitions, including a Disability British Bodybuilding title and a Universe title, which I am very proud of. Story 14. My high school best friend named her daughter after me and wished upon her my best qualities. I have never stopped bragging about this because I do not think many people can say that. Story 15. Marrying my wife, the cornerstone of my life and now my daughter's life, will be a healthy marriage. Story 16. Graduating with a Bachelor of Fine Arts with persistent depressive disorder, undiagnosed autism, and a learning deficiency that makes art and sports particularly challenging for me. I came from extreme poverty and used every resource to attend school. I had little support from my family. It was much harder than it needed to be, but I still succeeded. I continue to create art and have improved significantly since then. Story 17. I've done a lot of things in life, but one thing I will never forget is graduating high school in just 2.5 years. My family moved around a lot, and every time we arrived at a new school, they usually did not recognize the work I had already completed that year. I ended up repeating 9th grade 3 times because of that. At my last school, there was a program designed for seniors who were just a few credits short of graduating. It allowed them to finish classes in an accelerated format. I used that program to complete 9th through 11th grades, then did my senior year the usual way, though I had to take many gym classes since those could not be accelerated. The teaching assistant in the program told me I was the only student he had ever seen accomplish that. Story 18. Buying a house and paying off my mother's debt by age 30. I grew up with very little and a mother who worked multiple jobs to put food on our plates. We had to move around a lot because we couldn't afford rent, so that was a big win. Story 19. Solo traveling. I got tired of waiting for people to be ready, so I just started going with or without company. Story 20. I am not wealthy by any means, but I was given a compliment once. I was told that my life and happiness are what others strive for. Story 21. Consistency and discipline in maintaining fitness and health since age 18. I am 33 and look considerably younger. New people almost always comment on it. Discipline is now a non-negotiable part of my life. Story 22. I received an award for outstanding community achievement for my 4 years of volunteering at local elementary schools during college. Only one person could win, and all of my friends and several of my professors nominated me. Story 23. Graduating with highest honors in law while taking medication for epilepsy that significantly affects my memory required twice as much effort but felt twice as rewarding. Story 24. I graduated from college while working 2 jobs and dealing with family issues. I barely slept, but I made it. I still remind myself of that when things get hard. Story 25. Moving to a top country against all odds. Extremely weak passport, discrimination, financial hardship. Relied solely on good education, motivation, and strategic thinking. Story 26. Got cardiopulmonary resuscitation and first aid certified. Helped save someone who was choking and another person who was having a heart attack. Highly recommend taking a cardiopulmonary resuscitation and first aid course if you get the chance. Story 27. In March, I was one of around 800 students who walked from Niš to Belgrade, a distance of 237 kilometers, for a protest the next day. More than 30,000 people waited to greet and welcome us. Tomorrow is the biggest Serbian protest ever, with around 1,300,000 people expected. We are still fighting and protesting against the corrupt government. Story 28. I am the first person on both sides of my family to attend university. My mother went to college and graduated, but it was a very small one since I live on a farm in the prairies. I had the full dorm experience, and it felt like a movie. Story 29. Getting into university is a massive achievement, especially when people always called you the dumb one growing up. Now I probably brag about it, and people are genuinely shocked. Story 30. First, often appreciated by the people around me. Second, accepted into a Doctor of Medicine program. Recently, selected to participate in a research program at one of the world's top medical institutes. Story 31. 2 things, 1 minor and 1 big. I loved and changed my entire life by moving from Norway to the United States and lived there for many years. Second, I was hit by a driver who was on his phone at 60 miles per hour. I survived with only 2 black eyes, a broken leg broken in 8 places, and stitches in my head. The physiotherapist and doctor said I would be lucky to walk. 5 years later, I am a full-time soccer football referee. When I heard, "You'll be lucky to walk," I took it as a challenge, but it was a hard challenge. Story 32. Traveled 23,000 kilometers overland from Southeast Asia to Istanbul. None of my academic or career achievements matter after this one. Story 33. I knew a person who was ranked in the top 5 worldwide in Nintendo Wii Bowling. I am proud just to have known him. Story 34. I quit heroin and am no longer homeless. Then my fiancé accused me of rape and domestic violence, which caused me to be kicked out of our flat. Now I am back where I was 2 years ago, but I have not started using heroin again. I am still proud that I quit. Story 35. Just got the Freeletics 100-week streak achievement. That means 1 workout 4 times a week. No exceptions for COVID, work, travel, vacations, hangovers, or anything else for the last 100 weeks. Story 36. I went to university for the first time in my early 30s. I completed 2 bachelor's degrees and 2 master's degrees. Now I am working for myself, earning more in 1 day than I previously did in a week. It may sound boastful, but I grew up really poor, living in a caravan. I did not want my children to experience the same. Story 37. Graduating with my master's degree and getting a job in my chosen field took until I was 31. But I did it. Story 38. I bought an apartment in my capital city all by myself. I am a freelance actor and director. I never thought I would be able to live off of this 100%. Story 39. Played Reading and Leeds Festival with my old band. Live session from Maida Vale on BBC Radio 1. As well as great album reviews from two of my favorite music magazines I read growing up. So band stuff basically. Story 40. Graduating with an engineering degree from a private university with a full-time job offer going into my senior year allowed me to be debt-free 6 months later. All with no connections and very little family help. I received $2,000 from my grandmother to pay for housing during an internship. That was it. Story 41. Learning how to draw. Being sick for a long time, drawing is what has kept me sane all the while. I went from being active all the time to basically being unable to leave the house for 6 months. It became a lifesaver. Story 42. This is a unique experience, but surviving teenage pregnancy is my biggest accomplishment, mainly because everyone in my family became pregnant as a teenager, and I am the first in the family who is not. Story 43. Completed nursing school with undiagnosed attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Took me longer than others. In the process of failing repeatedly, I found study techniques that help others pass. Story 44. Saved and found forever homes for about 37 kittens last year through fostering. I still feel sad about 6 kittens I lost due to their illness. Story 45. Debt-free except for a mortgage with an interest rate under 3%. We should have it paid off in 5 years. Can fix most things in the house. Recently removed a wall, moved some light switches, and repaired the rotted subfloor. Story 46. At first, I thought I would be able to freelance and have the freedom to travel whenever and however much I want, as well as enjoy some free mornings. This was my wish for a long time, and now it is happening. Story 47. Bought a house with my partner and 2 dogs. We paid for all renovations without any help from parents. It was the absolute hardest thing to do. I keep to myself and live life as best as I can with very few struggles. Story 48. To eat everything I want as much as I want and not gain weight. Any cakes, burgers, or snacks do not affect me at all. Story 49. I was number 1 ranked player versus player in Ragnarok. Idle pouring for a while. Other than that, my friend and I split a bottle of Bundaberg rum straight when we were 17. He went to the hospital to get his stomach pumped, but I only got picked up by my parents. That was an unforgettable night. We played Slipknot and Mudvayne at full volume until the neighbor came into the house to make us stop. Oh, my 2 awesome kids are a close third. Story 50. My baby girl. I guess listening to my parents that I needed help, and even though it was really hard to move away from my friends and family to somewhere I have virtually no one. My dad is here, but he is a workaholic, and I am not close to his family, only seeing them at family gatherings, which are not often. I am starting to open up about my mental and physical health to a doctor. So, I am beginning to get some help, and I am not in the black abyss drowning like I was back in 2017. I moved here in February 2018. I am an advocate for my daughter. I still get a lot of praise for this. I do not know why it needs praising, but I guess that says a lot about society. Story 51. Learned to play the trombone within 8 weeks at university and performed with the Royal Marines at a joint university and Royal Marine School of Music Christmas concert. I had played the euphonium for 10 years before, so the transition was not very difficult. I focused on learning positions and practicing complicated pieces in 13/8 and 11/8 time signatures. Additionally, Royal Marines bandsmen set a very high standard while sitting next to me. Story 52. I couldn't come to live in Japan because I didn't have the grades to apply for a scholarship or obtain sponsorship. 10 years later, I saved about $50,000, sold everything, and here I am 2.5 years later, working on obtaining a permanent visa. Story 53. Not my biggest achievement and honestly pretty basic, but recently I was promoted at my job, which I honestly never gave my 100%. It was a huge surprise and made me wonder if I could achieve more if I actually tried harder at things. Story 54. I am a 48-year-old married father of two. My greatest achievement is finding contentment after a lifetime of anxiety, addiction, and depression. 5 years ago, I decided I did not want to feel frightened, tearful, and hopeless all the time. Through therapy, medication, and sobriety, I am now content. I genuinely enjoy life. It seemed impossible 5 years ago. Story 55. Choosing to go to a trade school instead of college. Working as a mechanic, I make twice as much as my friends and have zero in student debt. Story 56. Homeless, thankfully only temporarily as a teenager to having my own mortgage. At the moment, I am aiming to pay it off in less than the 30-year loan term. I will keep chipping away. Story 57. So far, I have found someone who truly loves me. Sure, I have done great things involving school and the military, but meeting my ex and being her love was special. Story 58. I informed the campus police about a person in my dorm who would sneak his 15-year-old cousin into his dorm room for activities that are inappropriate for a minor or a blood relative. He was expelled and faced criminal charges but fled the country. Story 59. I was able to overcome a crippling addiction to alcohol and drugs, which I turned into my best-selling memoir, A Million Little Pieces. Story 60. I watched my son de-escalate an argument he was having with his friend the same way I de-escalate with him. Story 61. Having the privilege of raising my children, I have watched all three grow into wonderful, kind, considerate, and successful adults. Story 62. Graduating with a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, despite not having any support from my family. Story 63. I am a man. I raised a daughter on my own. I have been a dance mother, cheer mother, gymnastics mother, and band mother. She is in her 40s now, with a great husband and two wonderful children of her own. Story 64. I saved a cool bug once. It was one of those large green leaf-looking ones. After I pulled over, I grabbed a stick to safely rescue it from my windshield. The poor buddy was very scared, but I was patient. When I escorted it to a nearby leafy paradise, it paused and did a double take from the leaves to me, then calmly went on its way. I thought it was amazing. It went from being very scared to just glancing at me and strolling away. I have lived all over my home country, put myself through college, paid off a home, moved overseas, but I still rank the cool bug interaction at the top of my list. I do not know why, but it really meant a lot to me. Story 65. Getting attached to someone and falling for them, and still waiting for them when they just left as if nothing ever happened. Story 66. Getting my pilot's license. I achieved a childhood dream and I will always be proud of that. Took a lot of hard work. Story 67. I cooked a beef Wellington and made the puff pastry myself. Turned out well, so I invited some friends to join me for dinner. It will always be a good memory of mine, and I am still proud of it. Story 68. Rescued 8 street kittens and 2 street dogs and found them homes in a country where they probably would have died or been sold for meat. Story 69. I beat expert minesweeper in under 100 seconds. I saved 2 surfers on different occasions from being pulled out by the riptide. I traveled for 6 months straight. It would have been longer if it were not for COVID. Story 70. I wrote a very specialized book just for fun, and it has become popular in its niche. It is now in its 4th printing. Story 71. I once emailed a floppy disk with a single command line. dd if =dev/fd0 uencode floppy at raw mail s your floppy redditor at reddit.com. Story 72. Probably convincing my dad to let me start my own import business when I was 17. Sounds small, but let me give some context. I grew up in Dubai, where most families expect their kids to either join the family business or pursue respected careers like medicine or engineering. I started importing luxury watches from Switzerland and selling them locally. I made like 400,000 Indian rupees, 400,000 Indian rupees, or $4,600 profit in 6 months, which was not huge money but proved I could actually execute business ideas instead of just talking about them. The real achievement was changing my dad's mindset about entrepreneurship. He went from focus on studies only to actively giving me business advice and connections. That experience helped me get accepted at TTR College, where you build businesses across different countries. Having real revenue numbers and actual customer feedback made my application much stronger than just academic achievements. I also learned a lot about supply chains, customer psychology, and luxury market dynamics, basically things you cannot learn from textbooks. Plus, my relationship with my dad completely changed. He started seeing me as a business partner rather than just his kid who needed protection from the world. Story 73. Getting into paramedic school. I came from a difficult background and fought for years to get to where I am. I had to dig myself out of the hole I put myself in. I also graduated with honors from the courses I just completed. I never went to high school. Story 74. The amount of low effort and time I have to invest to pass tests is minimal. I am never really the best, but always in the top third overall. Story 75. Buying my house on my own, with no private mortgage insurance. Fixing it up and making it perfect for me. Not living with my parents. They are great and caring, but their house is a huge mess and they refuse to declutter. Story 76. Not the biggest, but one I remember was converting the pre-press and account managers at a printing company to a completely paperless system. It was my idea and I implemented and troubleshot it myself. It required approval for a few $1,000s worth of equipment, but after the initial resistance that always comes with change, everyone loved it. We were using an enormous amount of paper previously. Story 77. Damn, some of these are incredible, so mine feels lame and egotistical in comparison. But here I am now. I am Caucasian, born and raised in South Africa. English is my first language. However, I have a knack for languages. I have formally studied several, but I am also self-taught in a few. I studied Japanese for 9 months in the lead-up to what I thought would be a year teaching English in Japan. Long story short, I ended up in South Korea instead. While there, I met another teacher, half Korean, who also spoke Japanese. I had been asking him to help me improve my Korean, and in my first informal lesson, I mentioned, "That is very similar to Japanese." As soon as he realized I spoke Japanese, he told me, "If you speak Japanese, you will be speaking Korean before the year is up." About a month later, I decided to spend an evening learning to read and write Korean. Within 4 months of living there, prior to which I knew not a single word, I one day decided to order pizza for supper. I called my local pizza place in the small South Korean town where I lived and taught, and placed my order, choosing various options and giving my address for delivery. Eventually, the owner, who runs the pizza place with his wife, arrived at the door with my order. As I opened the door, he looked at me and said, "Ah, sorry." One of the few English words he knew, while stepping back to leave because he thought there had been a mistake in the address. At that point, I replied in Korean, "No, that is okay. Thanks for my pizza." His jaw nearly dropped and he said, "Your Korean is so good. I thought you were Korean when we spoke on the phone." Silly little story, but I am still proud of that moment. Story 78. Pulling myself out of the gutter. It is nothing special, but not being 6 feet under and instead living in a beautiful area with an awesome fiancé and escaping the life that almost killed me is definitely my biggest achievement. Story 79. I'm not sure about my biggest achievement, but I wrote 2 emails to Steve Jobs in my life, and I received a response from him both times. The first response included a job offer. I also had a friend recommend Ethereum to me in 2017. I was skeptical but took a month to learn about it before buying in at $15. I watched it go to $1,400, then down to $80, then back up again. I held through that and sold at $4,000, making millions. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.